Hello and welcome to another episode of the Classical Republican. I'm recording this on July 18th. It's Monday morning. Um, the Idaho GOP had their convention last week. I was a delegate, and so I'm just going to tell you about some of the things that they did, that we did. So we actually approved a platform this time, so that's good. We didn't do that last year. We almost didn't have a platform. Not last year, but 2 years ago at the convention, and they almost didn't have a platform. We had to bring up the old one and just relabel it and pass it as our platform. So did more than the national convention because they didn't even pass a platform. So we got some resolutions and committees. I did not get any committee assignments this time, so I didn't really have a chance to speak. And I didn't really speak much during the. I didn't really speak at all during the. Give speeches before the whole general session. We had 750 delegates, and so a lot of people wanted to speak, and there were people speaking on my side, so I just supported them. So what we have, let's start with platform that I know did get passed. We had some changes. We had some attempts to get rid of the plank that has the repeal of the 17th Amendment that would return the election of the election of the U.S. senators to the state legislatures. So that did not get passed. So let's go on to what did get passed. Let's see. We had a platform. There's a plank on the right to life that just changed the anti-abortion language. And we tried to put in an exception for life of the mother, and that did not pass. And at that point, most of my delegation walked out because we realized that also just before that, actually during that debate, we had done our voting for party officers previously, and before debate, and what happened, they announced the results during the debate, and so some people started leaving at that point because the far right won. They cleaned us out except for first vice chair. Our side got that. The moderate Republicans got that. That's why I stand with the moderate Republicans, even though I'm a classical Republican. Nobody else identifies as classical Republican. So there I was. So so it was looking bad at that point, and then when we realized that we can't even get the phrase, or the exception for life of the mother, people knew that all hope was lost, and people started leaving, and in mass at that point. People started leaving once they found out that the far right had taken all the positions in leadership at the state, on the state. So that was pretty bad. That started the exodus, and then when we couldn't even get the life of the mother amendment passed, a lot more people left at that point, and that was because we realized that we just didn't have the votes to put anything a little more sensible than what came out of committee. So by leaving, our hope was that the convention would no longer have a a quorum in order to function, and they would have to stop all business, and all resolutions would be dead. But from an article that I read, it seems that they did pass the resolutions. So as far as, well, according to that article, and I'm a little disappointed in the media. I mean, I know we live in 2022, and the media is they're overworked, and they're overstretched, and they don't have the resources to cover everything. And so I went into the convention the first day, and they said that, or was it the second? I think it was the second day, and they said the big headline in the newspaper was that the GOP, Idaho GOP convention is poised to undo the 2020 election. And like, that was a submitted resolution, but it never even got considered. So I was really disappointed that they were talking about that when there were a whole bunch of other things that were actually going to, which were a lot more possible. And the whole, the big headline, and then most of the article was about that. So that was a little disappointing. Yeah, they're just kind of missing out on things because they don't have the personnel to get out there, the reporters to get out there and to not only be not only be there and to get the story, to listen, but to actually get the to understand what's really going on, and to understand what's normal and what's abnormal. And so I mean, there's always going to be some craziness that happens. For example, if you have if you come to a session of the legislature in Idaho, there's almost always every session a federal nullification bill that gets introduced, and it never passes, but it gets introduced. But sometimes you have a new reporter come and realize, to their horror, that they've introduced a bill that would bring about nullification of federal law in Idaho. But that happens that happens quite often. And I think we've passed some minor nullification bills that become law, but they're not like mass nullification bills, laws. But they say, oh, if the federal government does this, we're not going to we're not going to listen. And yeah, so it's kind of like trigger laws. And so then but they're triggers of things, of triggers that are never going to be pulled. So yeah, so it's a little disappointing that the media doesn't have the resources to cover things properly. So on to the platform, the rest of the platform. There were resolutions and platform issues where the issue of party purity. They were trying to make sure that there was no crossover voting, and Democrats coming in. They always say Democrats coming in, but our party, the Republican Party was has been infiltrated by libertarians for quite a number of years. So I mean, I get the argument that a party should be pure, but as I've said in previous videos, that the Republican Party really functions as a grand council. And I'm going to put out another video about that too, because it really, and being in this convention this time, it was just so clear. There are all these reasons why the Republican Party is a grand council of Idaho. I mean, it's become its own institution. It's almost a governing institution, and I'll get into that in another video. But yeah, they're really, the far right is trying to put an end to that, because they don't because this year they did, in the primary, they did lose a lot of statewide offices. So yeah, they want to bring it back to old-fashioned party status, where we're competing with other parties when we're not competing with other parties. So, all right, so we got the party affiliation. We got repeal of the 16th Amendment that passed. So that's the federal income tax. Okay. So they want to get rid of federal income tax. And if you look at the history of that amendment, we didn't really need that amendment because the federal government, well, there was one Supreme Court case where it was the federal income tax. This was in the 1880s or 90s. It was struck down, and so that started the movement for the 16th Amendment. And then, but the some scholars have pointed out that the Supreme Court had changed, and the understanding, the interpretation of law at that time has changed. So the federal government would still, even without the amendment, the federal government would still have the right to tax income. So let's see, judicial. Oh yeah, another platform saying that. And the platform's not really binding. I don't know how you can bind judges to their interpretation, but it said that they had to be textualists and originalists. And then we had religious liberty, just upholding religious liberty. I thought that was pretty good. And then then children. Something saying that children's gender was a part of their identification and should not be changed. What this was interesting because it got into a debate about where our rights come from, and there was this little faction that was very vocal during this, and they wanted to have the term legal right, or the authors of that platform wanted to have legal right in there, and there was this faction that opposed legal right, the verbiage legal, the word legal, because if it's legal, then the state can take it away. That's what they were so afraid of. And so they amended it to be God-given and inalienable. So yeah, and they were, but that's from the Declaration of Independence. That's what they were. But they weren't just taking the Declaration of Independence as the example of what they were arguing was that the state doesn't give you rights. Only God gives you rights, and that's it. So like saying that the state gives you rights is bad because they'll just take it away. So I don't know, they're anti-statist, I guess. Of course there are anti-statists in the Republican Party. But yeah, it was really shocking that they were just so opposed to saying that the state gives you rights. I mean, the state upholds your rights, and a lot of people of the classical liberal persuasion, which is the majority of the Republican Party in Idaho, they believe that the state should uphold your God-given rights. But I don't know, this little faction was just so outspoken about how the state doesn't have anything to do with rights. Like nothing. It was really, really, really surprising. So that was it for the platform. That's all new to the platform. Let's talk about the resolutions. There was something about ESG, which is economic social grade, about big business, getting woke, So it was about opposing corporate wokeness. Um, let's see, types of ID for voting. Oh, that was funny. I got to tell you, because they said, "Oh, you can't be voting with your Costco card." And then when we went to vote for our officers, a bunch of people from my delegation went and got their Costco cards to show their ID, because we had to show ID, not only our credentials that we had. That we were hanging around our neck that had our name and said we were from and our delegation, and so they used their Costco card. That was so funny. Then we had another resolution on promoting in-person elections, so trying to discourage absentee ballot voting. And then on to the making Idaho a Second Amendment sanctuary state. People were also very angry about how we were meeting at the CSI, the College of Southern Idaho, and they don't allow firearms on campus, and so a lot of people were very upset that we were hosting the convention at a site that strips you of your Second Amendment God-given rights. So then on to support for Israel. Yeah, this gets brought up every year, and we pass it every year, that we have to have Idaho has to have unequivocal support for the state of Israel. Idaho doesn't even have unequivocal support for the United States federal government, so I don't know why we have to have unequivocal support for Israel. Then another one saying that the U.S. is not the world's police. Another one on partisan elections, and I should have brought this. I wasn't a member of the committee, but they want to have partisan elections at every level, so that so even at school boards, highway districts, cattle districts, fire districts, ambulance districts, city council, you have to declare your party. And so, a lot of people are against that, because it would cost more money for different for the election, because you're gonna have to have a primary. So, yeah. Then we have privatizing Idaho public television. Another resolution on refusing to recognize imaginary identification or identity. Another thing on making the internet safe. Another resolution on anti-crossover. This was interesting, because it was calling for was the creation of a committee by the legislature to figure out, or was it by the state? I can't remember now, but it was just the creation of a committee to actually study the issue of crossover voting. And being a political scientist, I think that would be fascinating. And it would probably prove my point that the Republican Party, being that this is a one-party state with the Republican Party dominating, that it is a governing institution and no longer a competitive party. Now I say that, and I make this clarification in my previous video on why the Republican Party is the Grand Council, that it doesn't legally stop other parties from participating. It got there by winning elections. So, and one can argue that now they are trying to make it easy, or trying to make it harder for other parties to participate, but they are not banned outright by law. Then there was another one about children's health, and again, that was probably anti-transgender, and then but he uses very vague language. And then there was another anti-crossover bill, or anti-crossover resolution. So that was it. Yeah, the far right took over, and they lost the primary election this year. So there's no big threat of the far right really changing Idaho in the near future until another election. So yeah. Oh, and one other thing that did not pass, but there was a lot of interest in, was term limits. So there was this thing where they were trying to pass congressional term limits through an Article 5 convention. And so they were against. What really scared everybody was the Article 5 convention, but term limits seemed very popular. So that's going to be something for another video. Oh, watch my video on term limits, because that explains that how there are good and bad forms of term limits. So watch that video, and yeah, that was it. I am in the political wilderness. Well, as a classical Republican, I am in the political wilderness. Living in Idaho, but I am even more so, because the people I sought common cause with, the moderate Republicans, are all now out of power in the party. So until next time, long live the Republic.